Welcome to Hear Here, the podcast where you get a VIP behind-the-scenes look at the broad collective of music venues and festivals that make Buffalo the music destination it is. I'm your host, Bentley. In this episode, we are at Scenic Artpark in Lewiston, New York. We bring you an engaging conversation with Richard O.A.R, lead guitarist of indie rock band O.A.R, and Artpark superfan John Camp. But first, at the venue, I caught up with interim president of Artpark, Dave Wedekindt. Thank you, Dave, for joining us today. Artpark is such a beautiful venue. Started 50 years ago. What was the mission then, and how has it evolved? What is it today?
Well, Artpark was originally conceived in the early 70s to be kind of like Western New York's version of a SPAC. The original purpose was to really kind of celebrate all of the arts. There was a huge visual arts program here. A number of artists who went on to some pretty incredible careers got their start here. And with the idea that what they'd create here was impermanent. So we call it permanent impermanence. So it was maybe here for the season or a couple of years, and they either had to take it down or it was designed to just naturally just crumble away, right? At the same time, we had the main stage theater, and which at the time I believe had the largest stage in New York State. And it was built to do operas and ballets and huge productions. Bonnie Raitt was here the first summer and is going to be here for our 50th anniversary, which is kind of a cool full circle thing. And Buddy Guy opened for her that year, and he was just here last year on his farewell tour. There was a lot of jazz. Miles Davis played here. Just everybody who was like a thing or growing at that point in time. So it became like really popular summer place to go. It was heavily dependent on New York State funding in the early years. And then the 80s came along and funding kind of dried up. Then it was in the 90s when George Osborne was hired as the new director that he had the idea to start this outdoor concert series in the Amphitheater where we're sitting today. So that started the Tuesdays in the Park. And that put Artpark on the map again with the community in a big way because those free shows had enormous attendance. But then they became not sustainable. The business was changing and the crowds were too large and it overwhelmed the community. So then we started ticketing those shows and kind of starting to scale them down. So now we've kind of today landed at a good space.
I do feel a sense of newness here when I come to the venue. So tell me a little more about that.
We've reinvigorated the arts programming. We have the Amphitheater. We've reactivated our main stage theater for programming there as well. The 50th anniversary, we're bringing it back to that original spirit of Artpark, so it's fun.
What type of experience is it for musicians? Have you heard people talk about it? Have you had musicians on stage talk about it in other ways?
The musicians love it. A lot of them will come and they've never even heard of Artpark before, but they're so taken by it. And Bruce Hornsby was particularly struck by this. He's like, I didn't even know what Artpark was, and now I want to come back. The Tragically Hip played a lot of legendary shows here, and I've heard that they were so taken that there were like band members who wanted to buy a house in Lewiston. Like they just loved it here so much. So it does have that kind of effect on people.
It's a gorgeous day today, but if you hit a show at the right time, you can even see the sunset behind the artists over the gorge.
I don't know what it is about the sunsets here, but they're like showstoppers when we have a clear day. And a lot of times the bands will stop and they'll catch out at the corner of their eye and they're like, wait, is everybody seeing this?
Yeah.
And it really is like a spiritual experience. One thing that sometimes gets lost in all the excitement and attention of the concerts and the big events is that we're a park. We're a 150-acre park, and you can come here 7 days a week and walk the trails and just enjoy being in the spaces and bring the family, have a picnic. But also there's a lot of amazing art and creative experiences that are happening during the season.
How important it is that you have the dichotomy of the main stage theater and then the amphitheater?
When you want a big, fun night out kind of show where they want a lot of energy from the crowd and it's like a party atmosphere, if you will, the amphitheater is perfect. But then there are shows where the audience wants a seat and they want to just take it in and listen and be real attentive and, experiencing everything that's going on stage. And the artist wants that too. They want that focus, because we do encounter artists who'll say, I don't do like outdoor GA kind of things. I want a theater. And so we have that option.
And one thing I do notice is that you still try to keep the ticket prices accessible. And is that still a mission here at Artpark?
Absolutely it is, because also remembering that we're in a park, public arts organization, we want that, we want to be democratic and we want to be as accessible as we can. So we make a conscious effort to try to keep affordable tickets for many of the events whenever we can, with understanding that everything is getting more expensive. So we're always having to work with that. But I hear from a lot of people that are really happy that we're able to keep, our outdoor shows, the majority of them are like $20 for a general admission ticket, which is really, in the scheme of things, is quite a deal.
And your lineup each year is representative of multiple genres.
We like to mix kind of the old and the new. We're thinking about growing our next audience. For as popular as the Tuesdays in the Park series was, in its heyday, it was primarily a classic rock series. It drew a lot of people, but it was kind of drawing the same people every week. So for an arts organization, that's not growth. So we've made an effort to try to engage, still think about our 65-year-old fans and what they're interested in, but then also think about our 18-year-old who has never been to Artpark and what happens there. And so then get them in and have them create their own memories and experiences here.
I know I've seen some memorable shows here. I think about Jack White being here and, talking about Flaming Lips and, and the bubbles. What are some of the shows that pop out in your mind?
Well, there's so many. I'm blessed that I can see so much here. Personally, because I'm such a big fan anyway, and I was before, the Tedeschi Trucks Band shows are always great here, and excited that we're actually going to have them in the theater this year. And the simple reason for that is that they're too large to fit on this stage anymore.
Wow.
So we needed to look at another space. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to come back. Flaming Lips shows are great. My Morning Jacket, the two shows that they've done here, people just keep talking about. And there's because that is a perfect example of a band connecting to the environment they're in and to the audience that's gathered, and it just really becomes a special experience. And in fact, the first show still gets talked about a lot because Lizzo was the opening act that year, and no one had any idea who this woman is, and she seemed totally out of left field, and look at her now.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I've had experiences that stick out to me, sometimes had to do with things that on the surface really weren't that great. We had some weather coming in. We were dealing with rain kind of stopping and starting a show. And I can remember one time we had Government Mule here, which has always been a popular band here, but Lucas Nelson opened, and he's Willie Nelson's son, and he's really building quite a career. And after one rain delay, Lucas came on and played like a Hurricane by Neil Young, and then they finished. And then Government Mule came on, and then they had to leave because there was lightning within 7 miles, and we had to pull the plug on things. And then the show got shortened, and then so they packed their encore into their set, and they just never stopped. And for the people who stuck it out, they were rewarded with just a show they will never forget, because the band, and then they brought Lucas out, and the bands played it's the last show they're ever going to play.
Yeah.
It was really crazy. So I encourage people, if you're in, it doesn't happen that often, but sometimes the shows where there's threat of rain or it rains and we have to start and stop, sometimes you're going to be rewarded with the most amazing things. So deal with being a little wet maybe, but just relax, and we do our best to get the show back on, and artists rise to the occasion.
And you have a very dedicated staff here, and there are a lot of volunteers here that have been here for quite some time. What keeps them working every show all summer here at Artpark?
I know, they amaze me. Their energy and their commitment to it, especially as a number of them are getting older and maybe this music doesn't speak to them and it's not all their favorites anymore. But they're a really cool bunch of people, because a lot of them actually are really open to new experiences. I mean, they are our front line, right? And they're very welcoming, and they just believe in Artpark, and they see the role this organization plays in their lives.
What do you think keeps bringing fans back to Artpark?
The Artpark experience is different. I always say you could set up a stage in a parking lot anywhere and put a great band on it and people would come or whatever, but it's not going to be the same as being in this setting. And there's a shared energy here. The experience is what brings people back. Sure, the band is a draw, and that's a big factor if they're going to buy a ticket or not. But they would choose to come to Artpark over other venues sometimes because they just love being here.
What is your vision for keeping this art park? You know, the different kinds of arts, different kinds of music. What do you see for that?
For a number of years now, we've been very focused on international artists, which has been really cool. But I do think that there's an opportunity to bring more local artists back into the fold, New York State, regional, and give them a space to create and have an art park experience, especially as we look at the 50th anniversary. And obviously the world has changed, the public's changed, tastes change constantly, so you've got to stay nimble. You can't get too invested in one thing. So I think keeping the focus on not trying to be everything and know that you serve different audiences. You have people who love the concerts and they will only come here for the concerts. You have other people who love to just come here for walks. They love to just like sit under a tree and draw. That's great too. So keeping in mind that we serve a public, and to people in Lewiston, this is like their park. It's like their backyard.
I know I've heard you in the past compare Artpark to a Red Rocks. What would you say to somebody maybe thinking about traveling here?
Oh, good question. I think that, people should know that it's just a very free environment. I think if you're looking for kind of like a cool vibe, the Amphitheater is a space. If you're a theater person or enjoy an indoor experience, we have that too. If you like a small jazz concert for 50 people, we do those as well. So we have all these different stages. And I just encourage them, get here early. Use the time to explore the grounds, get in, walk around, check out our art installations, take that in too, and plan to have dinner here. Just, make it a day.
Yeah.
It's the best thing you can do. I think that the thing that drives me the most is that moment when I'm in the venue as the crowd's coming in and you can feel that anticipation. And then that moment when the curtain goes up, so to speak, and you think about all of the people that you work with that all have a role in making that happen. And I really believe what we do is so important to people's lives. It makes for a much better life when you have the arts and culture. And I feel it's a responsibility to keep that going. And because it's changed my life and it will change people's lives for many years to come.
Coming up is John Camp, an Artpark superfan. On the way to meet him, I ran into Alice Peterson, one of those amazing volunteers Dave was mentioning. So when we were planning out this episode, and we were planning out Artpark's episode, I said the one person out of all the performers and people here that I needed to talk to is Alice. I've seen you at so many shows here, just running things behind the scenes. How long have you been here at Artpark?
Not quite 20 years.
Wow.
It's pretty close.
So what drew you to volunteering here?
I was raised that's what you do. I'm the youngest of 5, and all 5 of us were raised that you give back to the community. I didn't want to be indoors, and I wanted to maybe do something outdoors. And our park was looking for volunteers, so I checked it out.
Here you are.
And here I am.
So I see you a lot of times talking to guests, making sure the audience is okay, making sure they know where they need to be. What is your involvement with the patrons here?
My main goal is to make sure that everybody's happy, because if you're not happy, you're not going to have a good time. And that's my goal. I want everybody to have a good time, to enjoy Artpark, because then they'll want to come back. And that's the bottom line.
Is there anybody that you haven't gotten to see here that you would hope could come to Artpark someday?
Darling Love.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, I've reached out a couple times just as a fan and nothing, but...
Well, maybe we can help.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you, Alice. And now back to John Camp. He's been attending concerts for decades, and now, because of his love of live music, actually serves on the Artpark board. Hi, John. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So we were in discussions of who we should have as part of this podcast. Your name was instant. It wasn't even like a second when we were talking about a fan of Artpark. What do you think draws people to the programming, and what is important for you to make sure is preserved in the programming?
Well, I think number one is diversity. Certainly back many years ago, classic rock was kind of, the cornerstone of the outdoor shows that when it really started to get big. But we also, made sure that we had a wide variety of, blues, New Orleans, Cajun, anything. I remember seeing Richie Havens here. I got to meet him. That was a thrill. So I think it's the diversity and to try to bring in, different audiences is what makes Artpark a special place. One of the things.
Yeah. And you go to a lot of shows, I've heard, and are a show aficionado, maybe.
I do like to go to a lot of shows.
And you keep track of them in a spreadsheet?
Yeah, for the summer. And I mean, there's so many shows I want to go to, so I put them all in a spreadsheet and I mark the ones I have tickets for and the ones I may want to go to if I have free time. So yeah, I've got my spreadsheet every year of shows I want to go to.
What have been some of your favorite shows here or some of your favorite memories as far as being a patron at Artpark?
Probably one of my most vivid memories is seeing the Flaming Lips here on this stage. And I was sitting, in like the second row. And what a show that was, both musically and visually. And I don't know if you're at that show, but, Wayne Coyne, the lead singer, he got inside this big plastic clear bubble.
Yeah.
And he went walking out into the audience, and they were supporting him. And that was an amazing show. One of my favorites.
Yeah. I've seen them out they've been in both, right? In the inside and
yes, and
outdoor.
they'll be back this year doing the 20th anniversary of their album that they did originally here.
Why do you think it's important to have both of these venues? Being a concert goer yourself, they're two different experiences.
Yes. For a while, we were doing a lot of the outdoor shows, and that's what got to be really big. And, we have the sponsor boxes, which are very important for raising money for Artpark to do other types of programming. So it's important that we maintain that. And then there's the outdoor atmosphere of being on the gorge while the show's going on and the sunset off to the right, back towards Toronto. And, and it's kind of like a family atmosphere. So you see a lot of the same people that come here and they meet up with their friends. And, I do the same. Plus, I've made a lot of new friends just from, getting to know people that come to a lot of concerts here. So that's great. So that's the outdoor experience. And then indoors, it's different, but it's great. There's not a bad seat in the house here. And, I try to get the best possible tickets I can. So a lot of times I'm sitting in the front rows and it's just a great experience. For the amphitheater, I try to, I usually do standing in the front of the stage, but because I like to get up really close.
Yeah. Well, especially if you go to all these shows, you're probably pretty experienced at what you want to see and where you want it.
Yes.
And the sight lines in both are really great.
Yeah, they're amazing.
So you have been to a lot of other venues in other cities. What do you think makes this area and Buffalo a special music destination?
Well, I mean, there's just so much variety. And, from small stages to, the bigger outdoor amphitheaters, the Darien Lake, has its version of its shows. Now you have the Outer Harbor with another outdoor experience. You've got, places like the Town Ballroom that is much more intimate. Although, the owners of the Town Ballroom have done a lot of shows here at Artpark as well. So they've help to, maintain the diversity of the different types of shows. Now you have Electric City, which is filling another void. You have Babeville, which is a very unique experience, inside a former church that has some great diverse artists that you wouldn't necessarily be able to see here because they don't draw a big enough audience. And then you've got like the Sportsman's Tavern that just has great music every day, national artists and local artists. So it's a really diverse experience in Buffalo, and you can really see just about any kind of music that you want.
So when you're going to a show at Artpark, what are some things that would draw people to this venue and to the area if they're not familiar with it?
Sure. Well, there's the Niagara River, and there's trails in our park that you can walk along the gorge. There's the village of Lewiston. That's just great. It's very walkable. It's a great place to have dinner or lunch. So, I think those are the two primary things, aside from going to Niagara Falls on your way here.
Yeah.
Right?
It's always nice to talk to a fellow music fan, especially when it involves Artpark. So thanks for chatting with us.
Okay, thank you.
In each episode of Here, I love the conversations we have with performers. And it was hard to pick what artist to talk to for Artpark. And then it was easy. O.A.R. will be performing their 9th show at Artpark this season. So via Zoom, I caught up with their lead guitarist, Richard On. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited that you're going to be playing Artpark, but you have been a staple at Artpark. I looked this up. 2011 was the first show. 13 years you've been performing there, and this is going to be your 9th show. What are your memories from Artpark and the shows and the early shows?
Wow. There's a lot. I mean, aside from it just being a beautiful venue, one memory that comes to mind is playing there with Andrew McMahon and his band. And afterwards, we wanted to see, we didn't get a chance to see all the beautiful art installations that are kind of surrounding the venue. And we went on a walk after the show to check out these art installments. And we ended up at a bar walking maybe Center Street or something. And we couldn't find our way back to the venue, so we had to have the bus drive to Center Street to pick us up. There may have been some drinks involved, but that's one of my fondest memories, cruising through the park and stumbling upon Center Street.
That area definitely sucks you in, for sure. What role does the area play in your performance and that scenic beauty, like being in front of the Niagara Gorge?
Sure. I think the ambiance plays a huge role in the inspiration and being inspired to play at the venue. And I think anything that's outdoor and just has a beautiful setting is something that, I think our band gravitates towards and that we feed off of. I think the first time that we played there, we didn't know where the stage was set up and what was the surroundings around us until soundcheck. And I remember looking over behind the stage and there's this giant cliff gorge with beautiful river running through, and there was like a riverboat like zooming around with people giving rides. And I knew right away that was going to be a special place, and was hoping that we could continue to play there, which we have. But that really kind of sets the tone for the day, I guess you could say. Everything leading up to the show is really important, how you prepare for the show. And ambience like that, a setting like that, just can only do good things. What
are some of the things that you do to prepare for a show? Can you remember anything Artpark specific or anything that you do on a regular basis?
Staying in shape and working out and being healthy is a big part of our process for the shows. And one of my favorite things to do is to run around Artpark because there's so many beautiful art installments. And that's part of the process of getting ready. Yeah.
You have a very loyal fan base, a very interactive fan base. Your shows are very high energy. What are some of the things that might make a person that has never visited this venue or never seen O.A.R. want to come see your band at this venue?
I mean, aside from the beauty of the venue and the art installments, I think the way that the venue is laid out, when there's people in there, it literally looks like an ocean of heads.
Yeah.
I remember off to the right, there's like kind of this giant hill. And when that fills up with people, it just looks like it's just endless. It looks like Woodstock.
Yeah.
We love it.
And you've toured all over the world, so it's great that you remember these things, because I can imagine that everything starts to just flow into the next thing as you're touring.
It's interesting because we have played a lot of venues, but there's always certain things that just kind of stick out. Sometimes they're nothing meaningful. It's a graffiti that's on the wall, or something beautiful like Artpark, where you can't forget that. There's nothing like it.
So you'll take the stage at Artpark on August 27th. So based on your previous performances and other shows you were performing, what are you most looking forward to in August?
I think getting in front of a crowd in a beautiful place like that, and being able to play old and new songs, but also playing our newest song. We have a new song that we wrote with DJ Premier and Brady Watt. It's a song, Gonna Be Me. And we're really excited to start playing that live. So I think that song in that setting at that venue is just going to be epic. It's going to be awesome. And I think this tour, we're gonna really focus on not satisfying that crowd that just knows us from the radio, but also our diehard fans that know the deep cuts that we haven't played in a long time.
We are actually going to be talking to Robbie from Goo Goo Dolls about a music festival that he puts on here in Buffalo. Music is Art every year, and he's going to be in one of our next episodes. But you guys actually did a song. You did the Tom Petty cover, Won't Back Down, with Goo Goo Dolls, right? How did that all come about?
Well, we were doing a tour together, and this was last summer, and we figured, well, let's get a song that we can get behind and be able to perform on stage. And collaborate on. We both love that tune. It's a great song. And we thought it would really resonate with the crowd, and that Mark and Johnny's vocals and Robbie's bass playing would really fit into a style that we could add to. So we had a blast playing. It was awesome.
You've toured all over the world. What makes a city a music destination? And how do you think Buffalo falls into that?
I think a city needs to have a great venue to be considered a musical destination. An anchor for live music to come there. Artpark is easily one of those anchors. There's a ton of other venues in Buffalo that are great that we grew up playing into, but ending at Artpark and being able to play there is it's a dream come true. And I think if you have a great venue like that, it automatically puts your city into a music town. Not only that, the fans in Buffalo, I mean, everyone comes to have a good time. Everyone there, they're all like real music listeners, they're real fans. So I would definitely categorize Buffalo as a music city.
Well, we have embraced you as our own, pretty much, I feel like, between all of the venues that you've performed here and continue to perform. So thank you. We look forward to your show August 27th, and thanks for taking the time with us today, Richard.
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much. We'll see you then.
See you then. That wraps up this episode of Here Here. Be sure to check out more episodes on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Buffalo is a unique music destination, and we uncover it all on Here Here. This program is produced by Buffalo Toronto Public Media for Visit Buffalo Niagara. I'm Bentley. Thanks for listening.